call the Town of Rome Plan Commission public hearing and regular meeting for Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 to order at 4:00 p.m. Number 2 is a roll call, starting on my right.
Wiesinger here.
Williams here.
Baker.
Goldman.
Jamadi here.
Also present are Town Administrator Jamie Gebert, Town Zoning Administrator Emily Zeddies, and Town Attorney Nick Flanagan. Item number 3 is to certify the posting of the meeting. Emily?
The meeting was appropriately posted. I can't locate my times right now,
Okay.
but it was posted accordingly.
Is it in your binder?
My binder?
Yeah.
No, I had it here.
Let's look for it quick because we have to read it for the minutes. See, we were waiting for Dean. It all worked out.
I had it down back in the office. I gave it to Linda though. Is that sufficient?
Do you think Linda has it? No,
I-
yeah. To just read it out.
Well, while we're waiting for that, we'll move on to item number 4 to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second with a couple deletions,
Okay.
7C and 12, and then 7E and 14 are to be deleted.
A motion and amended to reflect that 7C and 7E as well as items number 12 and 14 are removed from the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, is that amendment acceptable to the?
Yes, it
person that
is.
made the motion? Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5 is the citizen comment portion of the agenda. Emily, do you have any cards from anyone?
We did not receive any citizen comments.
Okay, and then I think the town administrator explained to all of you how section 5A it works. When your item that you would like to speak on is called as part of the agenda, then that would be your turn to speak. The next section is no action contemplated except possible referral to a future agenda. And number 6 are information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Anybody have anything they would like to bring forward? Okay.
Emily has 2 items and she can read the certification.
So the agenda for the December 13th Plan Commission meeting was posted at the following locations on November 23rd, 2022. Rome Municipal Building at 9:45 a.m., Quick Trip at 11:43 a.m., Community Support Edward State Bank at 11:17 a.m. It was emailed to the Wisconsin Daily Tribune at 3:06 on November 28th, emailed to the town website at 3:06 November 28th. The legal notice was printed in the Wisconsin Daily Tribune on November 29 and December 6, and the comp plan legal notice was noticed on November 13th, 2022.
Thank you.
And then an additional, I did include the updated new business information sheet, right after the agenda in this packet. And the CDA and Plan Subcommittee has, recommended to review of the canopy language for, Plan Commission on January 10th.
Okay, thank you.
If you'd have input on that new business sheet, let Emily know. That's kind of a joint effort between both Plan and CDA, so we would take that input if you had it.
Thank you. And number 7 is to open the public hearing. 7A, consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from the classifications of preservation, forestry, and residential to rural residential and a zoning map amendment from CV Conservancy District and R2, 1 and 2 family and manufactured dwelling residence district to R4, rural residence district relating to the properties owned by the city of Adams, described as follows. Part of parcel numbers 030-964, 030-960, and 030-961. Also parcels described as part of section 27, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, Total area of the section proposed to be rezoned is 19 acres. Emily?
So the city has an offer to purchase on what is commonly referred to as the Burt Morris property. The land was donated to the city by Burt Morris. The potential purchaser would like to build a home on the 19 acres and has indicated no future development on the acreage. There's an attached letter from the potential purchaser, and I distributed a letter from Bill Parr. So the purchase of the land would be for all 1,100 acres, but only 19 would be rezoned with this rezone. And the rezone is contingent on an approved CSM. 4 letters were sent to property owners within 200 feet. And Bill is here to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Parr, would you like to
You wanna go
speak?
to the mic? Yes, please. And just make sure that the mic is on, that the red light is lit.
Okay. Okay, I represent the city and the buyer. I don't know if you guys are knowledgeable about the property, but it's like 1,100 acres out there. It's all very wet, except for a certain area that where you come in off the road and circle around, and there's a small cabin there now and a garage. 2 acres are already residential, but it's a pretty small footprint with today's building sites and such. You have there a copy of the survey that the gentleman drew out. It's pretty cool that it's all high ground that's in that survey. And as you get off that survey, then it's lowland, a lot of wetlands. Some of that land in the north and east corner, you can hardly walk on it, it's so wet, so. He's planning on just preserving everything, except he wants a nice spot to build his house.
So this rezone would be correcting a split zone of parcels as well. And, I mean, there's a number of pictures in here that kind of lays out exactly all of the land that would be rezoned.
Any questions?
Commissioners, questions?
I have a general question. Do you know, so I see the letter, and that's helpful. So one thing that would be, something that I think, depending on what the decision would be, that would be maybe desirable to have, would be something for the property file that indicates that the rest is going to remain in conservancy. Is that something that, you think would be a problem with the property owners?
No, absolutely not. They'd have to come back to change it anyway, right? So, yeah. I think he said in there that he wanted to save the property as it is, except for the part he wanted to take out for the
Yeah,
building.
and so really what I'm looking for is something that's helpful 15, 20, whatever years.
And that's fine.
Is
No,
getting back to the property file and seeing, what that intent was, when the question came to the planning commission and the board. I think we'd be looking probably for something in the property file if, this does go through.
That's fine.
Would you be comfortable that it would say that it stays into conservancy and is not subdivided further?
Sure. I don't think it's physically possible to do that anyway, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Do we know what the current condition is of the septic well and electric that's on the property? And is the new owner interested in replacing those, or are they
Well,
usable as is?
it'll depend on, it's just a 1-bedroom cabin there, so that
know.
it's a mound system, but it's not very big. So I'm sure that those would all be considerations when he's gonna build. He's gonna have to do soil tests and what's gonna happen with the septic but I don't think the one that there is adequate.
Well, it says on what we have here that the major portion will not be disturbed or changed, so I'm wondering if the footprint of the existing structures will allow space for all the new structures he had described in the letter he sent us.
It's kind of why we went to the 19 acres. We had one
Right.
drawn before 10, and it looked like it was a little bit limited. And then I'm not sure on Conservancy if you want to put a blacktop drive in and stuff. We didn't have any answers on that, so we just thought, let's just make that all part of the R4. And then there's nice room for driveway and maybe a nice house.
Because with it being wetlands, and then I know throughout the years, there's been some major flooding back in there as well, which is why sometimes the cabin couldn't be used, so are they planning on tearing some of those existing buildings down?
Well, I think the house will come down that's there now. And I hunted up there, so I know it was wet, but it was never wet really in that house area. That whole area there is high enough that never got wet. But I know we didn't hunt there for some years because you had to wear boots to get out to some of those properties. And what he did over the years, they dug little pond holes and made, kind of a little driveway, walkway throughout that land. So that's why there's so many little ponds and wildlife areas there.
And so typically this is a odd lot shape.
Right.
It would be permittable because of the unnatural or untypical, land. The land uniqueness would definitely allow for this lot shape, and that's why it's,
And I tried to take pictures, and some of the pictures you'll see, because I took at all angles of that highland stuff and where it was and where the buildings are.
And then will the county be involved then with, as far as the wetlands, as far as putting in, that doesn't come under any purview or anything that we have to be concerned with? Once this is sold and it gets this rezoning as far as putting in the new septic and wells and all of that coming out?
We'll have to
The
do,
existing,
you'll still have to do his permit processes and all those things, yes,
the wetland and
yeah.
But the septic would go through county and the well would go through state.
yep.
state, right?
So they, when it goes in for submittal for a new home permit, those would have to be permitted prior.
And they're doing it by CSM, correct? So,
Correct.
so there are regulations in our land division ordinance that they will have to provide us, as we review the CSM for the land division as well.
So is there a guarantee they'll get the well, okay.
Certainly no guarantee,
Right.
because we have certain required things in our ordinance, right? As far as what we have to receive, as we review that, we will always review it against a checklist, really, of all the things that are required. So no guarantee, of course, until we have everything and ensure that it meets, our regulations as far as land division ordinance and zoning ordinance.
And I think there's a lot of positives. The city gets the money from the property, we get it back on the tax rolls, so.
Any other questions for this gentleman?
Thank you.
Thank you. 7B, consideration of a preliminary plat for the Alpine Estates subdivision to be located on a 79-acre parcel owned by TNS Land Investments, described as follows: parcel numbers 030-631 and 030-632. All parcels also described as part of Section 7, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Ellen?
So there were 18 letters, sent to property owners within 200 feet. So this map, so there was one included in the packet, and then the one, I emailed out, after the packet was released is an updated version. But both represent those 3 acres along Lake Arrowhead, and they actually combined those back lots to now everything, the back 40 is now essentially 220s instead of 5 acres. 5, 5, 10, as you go east or west. And Troy is here to speak if you guys have any questions.
Okay.
So Troy, you want the plan commission to focus on the V3 option, the option that's marked V3.
Yeah, that's the one that was from yesterday. Yeah,
Yes.
the most recent, yes.
Yep, this is the most recent one submitted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appears that should satisfy some of the concerns by some of the neighbors down there. I haven't, or, forest property down there, forest land. I have to applaud you for going out of your way to come up with a plot that satisfies the neighborhood. Appreciate that. They appreciate that.
Commissioner questions for Troy?
I actually have a question for Nick. Did we address now, that last issue that was brought up at the, or that issue that was brought up at the last Plan Commission meeting? There was a comment brought up. I don't have that note with me. Stipulation about, gosh, I forgot that note.
Minutes?
there was a condition that we had discussed, that we had thought about putting on here. We discussed it quite at length, actually.
Is that in part of Emily's notes that she gave us?
Emily, maybe you have the note. We had talked about, from our last plan commission meeting,
I'm just gonna look at the minutes.
wasn't in the minutes either. It wasn't covenants, but there was something similar to covenants. I was hoping somebody would remember. I don't see it in your findings of fact either. As I went through them, I didn't find it in the findings of fact, so I guess it wasn't important to anyone else, so.
The only other item, so the zoning change is conditioned on an approved,
CSM.
on a plat map, not
Plat
CSM.
map, sorry.
It was,
That could be, I mean, that's why the zoning change hasn't been sent to town board, cause it would have to, the approved plat map would still have to occur.
So I know most of the conversation was around density, certainly. And I think to that extent, this does address the concerns that were shared with the applicant.
something a little more specific.
And from a condition standpoint, certainly we could put a condition, and I think we would want to, of the approval on the acceptance of, final acceptance of a final plat before we'd move forward with the zoning.
I don't think that they are an issue, but I just wanna make sure that, fire chief is comfortable with both of the cul-de-sacs, just for ability to circle a fire truck in there if something would occur. I think the 100 radius will be fine, but, I could see us just making a note that between preliminary and final, that chief would look at those cul-de-sacs and ensure that they're sufficient.
I think we just simply state that the roads need to be built to town standards, yes?
Yeah.
That would be the best way to do it.
Any questions, any more questions to commission? Anybody in the audience?
Yes.
Step up, sir, please.
Good evening, guys. First of all, I'd like to apologize for a couple outbursts at the last couple meetings for this agenda that we're speaking about. I've just got a couple questions. A lot of my neighbors haven't showed up, and they're tied up. I've got a question regarding the R1 status for this neighborhood. This began 2 meetings ago that this was going to be promoted as a nice development. We were debating manufactured homes / trailers, mobile homes, and now the way we all understand it, R1 is basically a campground, a trailer park. If I'm wrong, explain to me how. I guess an explanation I would appreciate it, and I'll spread the word in the neighborhood. And our position, every neighbor there, we didn't move to this community. I didn't move down. I came from Friendship, and this is my 3rd home in this neighborhood because I love it, because of the development. This development is not right. It's a prime piece of real estate right down from the town center, right down the road. You're gonna drive into a trailer park. And I've had neighbors in this community. If you think the bad's not gonna happen, the development or the care isn't gonna go south, it goes south. And the town's not gonna back anybody up. They said that at the meeting last time, if it comes to enforcing anything. The developer who's gonna develop a nice development isn't gonna do anything. It's pretty much just development on the way he's gonna force you guys to allow, because that's all he can afford. I will thank you for the accommodations you made for the properties on the backside, going to like 3.5 acres. But in the future, if it's R1, who's gonna stop those people from splitting those up into smaller properties, like half-acre lots? Come in there with a family or a group of people, and next thing you know, now it's a 20-acre lot, will be divided up into 21-acre, which would be nice lots. Good for the economy, good for the tax base. And I can see the way this is going on, that this is a whole lot of revenue-generating issue and machine here. And I get the development, but it's gotta be proper. I mean, we knew the property was there, something was imminent, but I'm hoping that there's a way to make it proper and represent the neighborhood right down the street from the community that will be driving by and walking dogs and pets and using that trail that Arrowhead supplied us. And the developer's theory on people building close to roads and there won't be any backdrops against their neighbors. Well, I can guarantee you that's not the way he would develop it. If he's gonna put up a pole barn, you're gonna put it in your front yard or you're gonna put it in the backyard, right against us. I know I would put it in the backyard and have my beautiful home in front, if it's not a mobile home or a camper. We just don't get it. This doesn't seem to be going forward, and I hope it slows down. And just look at it for what that neighborhood potentially could be worth to the community. I mean, I got a modest home, but there are some people that have some beautiful homes on that street, and some people that bought multiple lots for the privacy, and they can have their 600 feet of backdrop, but now there's a 20-acre lot back on that corner on the west side, which is better for that one homeowner. I guess that's all I've got. I probably used up my 3 minutes. I would just like you guys to consider where this is going. And bottom line, we all bought, some of them properties that are developed, they were bought for potential retirement homes. And there's a home being built right now with a nice big deck on the back end. And who knows what he's gonna have right against the back of his property. Being allowed R1, that's not what Rome was about. That's all I'm gonna say to Beach. Just keep it simple. We expect decent development. If it's not possible, well, everybody on our street is kind of out to dry. Apparently, we really don't matter. And if that's the way you're gonna set it up, that's the way it's gonna be set up. But I've been in 3 places, and I'll find a 4th, because that's not the neighborhood we bought into. And you've heard it in the first 2 meetings, and I can't even believe R1 came up in the conversation. That's frankly unacceptable, and the neighbors are just, they're befuddled, and we're kind of stuck. I'm sorry, I probably took up way too much time, and I'll hang around for the rest of the meeting if anything else comes up or anything can be explained.
You just want to state your name and your address
Oh,
for the
sorry.
record, please?
My name is Lauren Gostomski, and I'm at 338 Blue Waters Trail.
And then just to give you a little bit more explanation, mobile homes and manufactured homes are not permitted. And the minimum lot size would be 1 acre, so they could not go any smaller than 1 acre. They could not go to half acre.
So mobile homes are not permitted.
They are not permitted. They would be prohibited.
And campers,
You could camp.
20 or 12 months of the year.
You can camp during the camping season. It would be like,
April 15th through November.
April 15th to November 30th. You can camp during the camping season. You
You
could
would-
not camp in the off season.
You would not have to remove the camper though in the
Yes,
winter from
they
these
could
lots.
keep the camper there, but they could not live in their camper, in R1
You can't live in your camper
at all.
Camping's not
Yes.
living. It's not the same.
Okay, then how about next one, I'll be asked is the 3 acre lots. How much smaller can these lots be made and subdivided? I mean, if you're allowing this right now, I can't see why you wouldn't say no to somebody that's gonna take that 20 acre parcel on that southwest corner and say, I wanna put 20 more properties there.
So there are, lot design standards. So, like, there's certain frontage, so they cannot go any less than 70 foot of frontage, and then no less than, so, looking at the roads right here, so a lot would need to be at, like, relatively rectangular or square. So, you can't unless they're gonna build a road, you can't subdivide this into 21 acre lots because there's not road frontage for it.
And given that
And
Troy builds roads, I would assume he's done the cost analysis that that's not cost effective to build the road.
to that point, if that were proposed, the other thing that would make that problematic and actually completely complicated would be that if you took your 70 and then you dropped it down, you couldn't do it because we have depth and width restrictions and it wouldn't pass.
Yeah, so you couldn't just slice that up into however many, because it needs to be a certain depth and width.
So from that cul-de-sac, if somebody said they wanted to put a road further west, that wouldn't be allowed. and that 20-acre parcel couldn't be divided up into 4 or 5 acre parcels. Or it could be divided up. I mean,
That's not what he's
development.
asking for right now, though, that's a different discussion.
Well, no, it's not, because it's Pandora's box. This is supposed to be an R4, these are
That's not
supposed to
what's
be,
being presented right
Gentlemen.
now.
Think-
Yeah.
Refer your comments up to the
okay, I'm sorry.
commission.
I do believe, though, that, in reference to the earlier meetings, the concern came up that we were talking R2, then it went from R4, then it went to R1. When the original people from the neighborhoods came and they gave us a list of people, is that correct, Emily? And then we were starting to talk all of a sudden about R1, but their biggest concern was about the camping, and that the developer didn't want to be concerned with having covenants that ruled out camping. That was what some of the original concerns were about, that camping would be allowed in an area that was originally R4, was R2, was the original conversation, then suddenly now we were talking about R1, but still allowing camping, and then no covenants were being considered. Is that correct?
I think the reason covenants weren't considered, cause it's not enforceable,
Right.
and so it's not necessarily
Not enforceable by this developer because he wasn't getting into that type of ownership with the sales.
yeah,
There would
there's-
be no
it just wouldn't
HOA.
be- Exactly, there wouldn't be an HOA to enforce it.
And the town didn't want to get into the enforcement part of that.
We can't.
We can't.
Yeah, we can't enforce that. So camping is permitted townwide except for Lake Arrowhead because of the HOA.
Right.
We can't not allow camping.
So just for clarification,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah.
we started at R4, went to R2, then it was
Yeah,
some
we were
R1.
jumping around a lot, and then we settled on the R1, with the condition that there's an approved plat, which is this agenda item.
All right.
Do you have any questions for this gentleman? Okay.
All right, thanks for your time.
Anybody else would like to speak? Troy, you know, anything you wanna rebut or talk about? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the next item then. It's gonna be 7D on your agenda. Consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose: the short-term rental at the property located at 1065 Kingsway, owned by Dean Ramsden, also described as Lot 6 of Ancaster addition of Lake Sherwood, located in southwest 1/4, northwest 1/4, Section 16, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 030-1832. Emily?
There are 10 notice letters sent to properties within 200 feet. Staff recommends a maximum occupancy of 8, maximum vehicles of 4 to be parked on hard surfaces, not on the lawn or grass at the property. And then this is gonna follow for all short-term rentals. The conditional use permit is one requirement of the short-term rental license. The applicant must comply with all short-term rental requirements before the first rental occurs. And Dean is here.
Would you like to speak, sir?
Is it necessary?
No, it's not necessary.
Dean might,
If anybody had any questions to ask you. Sure.
he might share that, cause this, if the address looks familiar, it does currently operate as a short-term rental. It is with a different ownership. Mr. Ramsden is buying this property, and short-term rentals, their conditional use permits are specific to the property owner. So when he becomes the new property owner, he needs to carry the same short-term rental license.
Commissioners, questions?
Nothing.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, thank you. 7F, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose: the short-term rental at the property located at 1179 Brown Bear Trail, owned by Bricklewack Investments LLC, also described as Lot 1 of CSM 6500, located in the northwest 1/4, Section 20, Town 20 North, Range 6 East, Town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, with a parcel number of 030-2945. Emily?
There are 12 notice letters sent to properties within 200 feet. Staff recommends a maximum occupancy of 12, maximum vehicles of 6 be parked on hard surfaces, not on the lawn or grass at the property. And Sean is here to represent the short-term rental.
Anything you'd like to tell us, sir? What your plans are or anything, or?
Nope, just my wife and I are gonna use it as a vacation home, and when we're not here, we wanna use it as a short-term rental. That's about it.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
I forget which property has a pool. Does this property?
That's
have a-
this one.
Okay. So how, we've had other properties that have had pools and public health hasn't necessarily licensed use of that pool. Do you plan that pool that would be used by the people that would rent the property? And then how do you ensure that it's being treated?
We're still researching, I guess, companies that would basically come in and check the pool regularly. So, use of the pool by the short-term rental is still up in the air, cause if we can't get somebody that's gonna come in regularly to check the pool, then it's not gonna be available for use.
How would you close it off if it's not available for use to the renters?
I don't know, it's gonna have a cover on it, and it's just it's gonna be stated in the short-term rental agreement that the pool's can't be used.
And the cover is some sort of hard cover with a lock?
No, not right now, but it will be if we can't, if they're not allowed to use it, it will be.
Just something you might wanna take into consideration with the motion. We do have one other that has a pool, and given the limited number of pools that are in our area, it's very hard to find someone that can treat it on a regular basis to ensure that it's getting tested for varieties of individuals to use it.
Any other comments or questions?
I do have a question.
Sure.
And I know where the house is with that pool. How is that, from the road, you can't really see how that pool is connected to your home. Is there a way you can get that off from the home then, and other than a cover? I mean, there is another way, isn't there?
What do you mean get the pool off? Get the cover off?
No. Gate the pool that people couldn't
Oh,
tamper with the cover.
I see.
If I recall correctly, how is it connected to the home?
It's
You have
it's-
another option
It's
than
just a
just-
freestanding pool, but that whole backyard is fenced in and gated in.
That's what I thought. Okay.
But anybody using the short-term rental would definitely still have access to the backyard where that is gated in. 'Cause it's still like an area where there's a fireplace and stuff like that.
Okay, that big brick, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Have you had a conversation with public health about the pool? I mean, have they,
No concerns. They haven't raised any concerns.
okay, and do you already have your tourist rooming house license? Okay.
Right? I think we have that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Item number 8 is to close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Jerry, to close the public hearing. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next section is to discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 9, discussion of possible action regarding the meeting minutes from Tuesday, November 8th, 2022.
Motion to approve as presented.
Seconded.
Motion by Jerry, second by Paul, to approve the minutes as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9, discussion and possible recommendation to the town board, consideration of the proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment from the classifications of preservation, forestry, and residential to rural residential, and zoning map amendment from CV Conservancy District and R2, 1 and 2 family and manufactured dwelling residence district to R4, rural residence district, relating to the properties owned by the city of Adams, described as follows: part of parcel number 030-964, 030-960, and 030-961. All parcels also described as part of section 27, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin. Total area of this section proposed to be rezoned is 19 acres.
Mr. Chairman, just
Nick?
one general comment. You do have the findings of fact in your packet. So if you do decide to make that recommendation to the town board, if you would consider putting that into your motion. And then this was the one that we did have a discussion regarding the property owner sign the agreement, that the remainder of the property stays in conservancy, and not to be subdivided further. So consider that as a condition.
There's a CSM involved here somewhere too, is there not?
With a condition, yeah, so a rezone with a condition of an approved CSM.
Yeah,
Where's-
you put that as a
See the
condition as well.
recommendation.
I'll make a motion, we recommend to the town board the proposed comprehensive plan map amendment to change the parcels that are listed in the agenda item here to R4, including the findings of fact and additional conditions of a completed CSM and a signed agreement from the potential property owner indicating that the remainder of the property, not the 19 acres of the rezone, would remain conservancy
And will not be subdivided.
and will not be subdivided. Knew I was getting something.
Second.
Motion and a second. Motion by Dan, second by Jeff to approve or make a recommendation to the town board on proposed comprehensive plan map 9 amendment. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11, discussion and possible recommendation to the town board, consideration of a preliminary plat for the Alpine Estates subdivision to be located on a 79-acre parcel owned by TNS Land Investments, described as follows: parcel number 030-631, 030-632. All parcels also described as part of section 7, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin.
Similar comment, this one does have findings of fact as well, just for your reference, if you do decide to make that recommendation to the town board.
When we adopted the camping ordinance, Lake District camping ordinance is town-wide, we did not include the provision that the campers have to be removed?
Well, so that's, the removal of campers for Lake District is not part of camping ordinance. That's part of Lake District outdoor storage ordinance.
Oh, okay,
That's
that's what
separate
it
from,
is.
yeah.
So only Lake District has the outdoor storage requirement, none of the other.
There's a lot of confusion on this. That's not camping ordinance.
We previously approved R1 for this, correct?
Approval of R1 with the condition of the approval of the plat.
So it has not gone through town board yet.
Right.
seems like we're a little hesitant here.
I think unfortunately what happens sometimes is that although we look at the Lake District as separating out homes as being of more value than other places in town, and I think sometimes that's where we get into a little bit of an issue too, is that people find value in other parts of the town as well, and I think sometimes it's just my humble personal opinion that with even like this camping thing that you just said, right? I mean, it separates us out and they don't have to remove them. This isn't part of the Lakes District, is it? So they don't
Correct.
have to
Lake
remove
District
the
was
campers.
not a zoning district that we were debating.
Right, so, I mean, they can leave those campers sit there all year, so that creates an issue here. So even though they made nicer size lots, no covenants, they can leave those campers sit there all year, and that creates an issue for those folks that live in that area. Just a comment, observation. Which,
There would be a maximum of 4 campers.
a maximum of 4 campers on a 2-acre lot.
No,
No, one camper.
along all of Lake Arrowhead. There's 4 parcels along Lake Arrowhead.
Oh.
But there would be a maximum of 4 campers.
4 campers.
Maybe
Yeah.
one camper per lot
Camper
in
per
a subdivision.
parcel. Cause they got rid of 4 lots?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
They could have guest passes, but those would be for limited periods of time.
Yeah, they could have a guest, like anyone else in Lake District outside of Lake Arrowhead. But those could not stay there.
So is there any way to do it without camping?
You'd have to amend the camping ordinance or R1 ordinance, but that wouldn't be part of this. We couldn't restrict camping just for this subdivision.
And there's not a homeowners association you're talking about, right?
Yeah, there's no homeowners association.
I think what he did with the additional cul-de-sac and the larger lot sizes are nice. It's just with the R1 and the camping is a problem for the other people in that area, and it's just,
I think there was confusion with what R1 allowed.
mm-hmm.
Because camping, that's allowed townwide outside
Right.
of Lake Arrowhead, so we can't
Right,
not allow that.
Even if this was Lake District, which is our most
Right.
restrictive
Restrictive.
zoning, you'd still
Right.
allow camping.
right.
Yeah. And that's still 1 acre lot size.
I think the original homeowner's concern is that if it was R4, they were anticipating more and what types of houses were allowed, and then we were talking to R2, and then that's where the those original folks that gave us their names on that list.
Yeah, they didn't want an R2 zoning because, and based on, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but there was mention of,
Manufactured.
manufactured and mobile homes.
I think that's what came up in discussion, but originally the intent was multifamily, right? I remember talking about that and saying that this is adjacent to where the town intends to have multifamily, but then the zoning allowed for things that nobody really wanted there.
Yeah,
Right.
and so, to be clear, single-family dwellings
Yeah.
is what is permitted, not mobile and manufactured housing. And a limit of 1 camping unit per lot.
Well, unless somebody comes in and establishes a subdivision with an HOA, you're not gonna get away from the camping, and I don't think anybody will with a development this small, so.
I think there's a misunderstanding. I don't think people really understand what manufactured housing can be either anymore, and that's something maybe they just need to have a fuller understanding, because Wausau Homes, they're built so different, or even Timberlake, but that's not a discussion for this tonight, but maybe when we describe those things, when we wanna switch to that type of, R2, that they have a better understanding of what that really is today. Cause they're built so differently, but
I don't think that's accurate.
that was one of the concerns they brought up that night, though.
But what your definition of a manufactured home, we're talking about like mobile homes and such?
No, not mobile homes, manufactured.
That's permitted in R2, is it not?
But we can stipulate that they don't allow mobile homes if, just like we,
How's that enforceable?
That's not enforceable. That'd be an HOA thing.
right, like
Through
with an HO,
covenants, and
Yeah.
through a covenant, right.
it goes right back around to,
True, true. With it, you're right. Would be covenants.
If approved, is there any discussion for, road construction timeline? As far as that roads
Phase
would
1 and
be completed within, before homes, construction would begin? I mean, lots can obviously be sold before road construction, but, so there would be a access? Is that something that should be considered?
yeah, I had 2 other conditions, but I was just gonna wait till, I mean, if nobody's gonna make a motion, I wasn't going to even mention conditions. I have 2 conditions that I had written down.
Well, I mean, to have this formal conversation, shouldn't we have a motion and a second and then actually have a conversation?
That
He's
never
correct.
happens. Never happens in this town.
Well, then, in that case, I will make a motion to recommend the town board to approve the preliminary plat for the property, the location, where am I at? 11. For the property at the Alpine Estates subdivision.
Would you specify that's for the V3, the version 3 plat map that? we-
Absolutely, it's for the most recent third version of the plat map.
Findings of fact.
And to include the findings of fact. Thank you, sir.
So with that, I have 2 possible conditions.
Do we need a
that you might
second?
consider. First,
Yeah.
This would be part of the motion with the conditions, and then second.
this would be for the findings of fact. That's why I bring it up now.
We don't have a second yet. Does that make a difference?
Well, yeah, because if you, so do you wanna adopt the findings of fact with no conditions or consider conditions?
I will consider your conditions.
Thank you. First, maybe a condition that the roads need to be built to town standards. Second, that approval is conditioned on the final approval of the rezoning, because again, that was just a recommendation to the town board at this point.
And my motion should include both of those conditions.
I'll second the motion.
Just read that second one more time then.
That approval is conditioned on the final approval of the rezoning.
And then, do you wanna consider a timeline for those roads, that the roads would be, that they're built to town standards, but they are completed before construction begins to allow access?
Nick, how would I phrase that?
Well, you would build, so roads need to be built to town standards and completed before,
Develop.
Permits are issued.
yeah, before home permits are issued, that's fine.
Then that also is included in my motion.
I'll include it in my second.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion by Jeff, motion and a second by Jerry to approve this, or recommend to the town board the consideration of the preliminary plat. Any other discussions by the commission?
I just have, because I wrote down 3, I just wanna repeat them before you make your final motion.
Okay.
So to accept the findings of fact, including that we're talking about version 3 of the plat map, that all roads and cul-de-sacs are built to town standards and completed before home permits are issued, and approval is conditioned on the final approval of the rezoning.
You had mentioned approval by the fire department, but the
That would be
town
local
standards.
Town standards, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion's approved with 1 dissenter. Item number 13. Discussion of possible action, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose: short-term rental of the property located at 1065 Kingsway, owned by Dean Ramsden, also described as Lot 6 of Ancaster addition to Lake Sherwood, located in the southwest 1/4, northwest 1/4, section 16, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 030-1832.
I do have one other question.
Okay.
Maybe before do see on the proposed use, it states they own a lake lot with a camper on Lake Sherwood. Is that the Duffers Trail address?
No.
No.
Okay, so there's another address.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then, nothing further.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to issue a conditional use permit for short-term rental on the property at 1065 Kingsway with the findings of fact, which include occupancy and cars and property manager already.
Second.
Is there a term?
Term is indefinite as long as there's maintain a short-term rental license.
Second.
That's included, I think, there.
Yes, part of the
Yeah,
findings.
it should be built.
Is that built into it now?
Okay. Motion by Jerry, second by Jeff to approve the conditional use permit for 1065 Kingsway. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 15, discussion of possible action, consideration of the issuance of a conditional use permit for the following purpose. Short-term rental of property located at 1179 Brown Bear Trail, owned by Bricklewack Investments LLC, also described as Lot 1 of CSM 6500, located in the northwest one quarter, section 20, town 20 north, range 6 east, town of Rome, Adams County, Wisconsin, parcel number of 030-2945-10.
Mr. Chairman, one
Yes, sir.
potential comment, since it came up during the discussion. Another consideration of a condition that you may want to make is that if the pool is not to be used with a rental, or if it's not approved by the county, that it be secured with a hard cover and lock. Is there a motion? No. Okay.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for the short-term rental at 1179 Brown Bear Trail with the conditions of, or finding, including the findings of fact, and also included is that if the pool is not approved by the county
Or used with a rental.
or used with the rental, that the pool have a hard cover placed on it that can be locked.
Second.
Could we slightly amend that to say that they have to provide something to the town that it is either not in consideration with the county or approved by the county? It's just something in writing from the county to say that they're comfortable with this.
Well, so I think the condition can be as it's been stated, but I think that we can require that before we issue the conditional use permit, or sorry, the short-term rental license, I'm sorry.
So does that need to be part of the amendment or the motion to be amended?
Not necessarily, because you're not going to see that, because it's going to be collected by us, put in the property file. And so I think what you would do is, before we'd issue the short-term rental license, because of course this is only one step in the process, like Emily said, that before we would issue the short-term rental license, because this is a condition, that we require some documentation for that.
So I have written down if pool is not approved by county or not used by renters, the pool is locked.
A hard cover and locked.
Thank you.
Is there someone at the county that actually comes out and inspects that at the county doesn't do an actual inspection, do they?
Yes, the county does the
The
tourist rooming house
pool,
license.
yeah, but do they inspect the pool?
I don't believe that there is a individual that does that, no,
So,
that has that expertise, so it's likely hired out to a pool company.
okay.
So they want to amend that, not just saying county, but county/pool company, or?
But isn't it the county that hires that out?
It'd be the county
They don't,
enforcing.
they don't hire I think what they say is it's not permanent, like, we're not issuing you a permit for the pool, you have to seek that in another means. Is that what you're understanding from the county?
So don't we just need to know that the pool is covered with a hard cover and that it's secured?
Then what
Is
you're,
that what Nick is saying?
but then what you're saying is the pool is not usable by short-term rentals. then I think the condition would be that the pool is always locked and not usable by short-term renters. Is that an issue?
Well, I mean, if we can have it cleaned and maintained, it would be ideal that short-term renters can use it.
Which is the motion as stated now, correct? Yeah.
It's just gonna require us to get some documentation before we would issue the short-term rental license.
Okay.
And if they choose not to use the pool, then we just need some documentation that shows that.
So maybe we can just rephrase to say that the property owner will be providing documentation of pool maintenance before use by renters.
Sure.
And do you do that then with each time that they have a short-term rental guest?
It would be a company that ensures that it's cleaned and treated. So on a regular basis.
So, but yeah, but I mean, every time the pool is turned over to a group, another rental, the pool company would have to come out and re-inspect and test the water.
Yep.
Do we even, that's not even within our purview. Like, that's the health department, right?
Yeah.
Again,
So,
is I think is it acceptable to the county, and if they're not going to use the pool, we want a hard cover with a lock. That then leaves it up to them to make that decision. I mean, you know, it sounds like they're working through that, but, I'm not sure that we're going to want to start checking records of pool use.
Right.
For short-term rentals, that could be, a slippery slope.
But again, I think what county health department is gonna say is, we don't do this for residential properties. We might do it for a hotel, we're not gonna do it for a residential property, and I don't want us to get into the loop where the conversation is, the county doesn't license it, so it's okay, and then we still don't know if it's being treated, right? We still don't know if it's receiving regular maintenance and having chemicals put into it, that sort of thing.
So the county health department does not care whether, there's a chance they don't care at all whether the.
I think what they will
rentals-
say is, we don't license it, you need to find someone that would come and do the maintenance for it. We're indifferent to the fact of providing a license that would cover it.
So why don't we ask for a contract evidencing pool maintenance, and that's it, that we're not gonna go check the water or anything like that, and as far as we know, things are happening, they're supposed to be happening.
Okay, so if the pool is going to be used with the rental, we want a contract evidencing pool maintenance. And the pool needs to have a hard cover with a lock if it's not going to be used with the rental.
I'd just tear the pool down if I were you.
Big garden.
Do you have a book? I wrote all over this one, I'll make a copy.
Okay, is everybody now comfortable with the motion? Or understand it, I should say?
That's more, yeah.
Okay, so I made the motion, Jeff seconded the motion, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 16, discussion of possible referral to a future agenda, review zoning district requirements regarding roof pitch.
So can I make a request, and that be that we take on number 17 first, because that is one that's very timely with our last discussion, and one that you have options already drafted for, that we can discuss and maybe consider today.
We need a motion to switch, does anybody have any objections to taking number 17 before number 16? Hearing none. And number 17, discussion of possible referral of future agenda, review zoning district requirements regarding signs and billboards.
okay, so in the packet, included are regulations for certain zoning districts, the notes from the signs and billboards conversation from the November 8th Plan Commission meeting, feedback that I received from plan commissioners, and 2 options for updated language. So, option 1 amends the language in article, in reference to the Gateway Overlay District that directs you to, 360-126. And this keeps Gateway Overlay District and Rome Town Center separate under the signs and billboards and adds ground signs to the permitted signs and gateway overlay district, and it clarifies the area requirements for signage. Option 2 amends the language in gateway overlay district that, directs you to the, to section 360-126, which is signs and billboards, under Rometown Center, to be more clear, and combines the Gateway Overlay District and Rometown Center District under regulations for certain zoning districts.
So just to recap, at our last meeting, we had a conversation regarding specifically, sign regulations in the Gateway Overlay District. And we had some preliminary discussion about potential ways that we can revise our ordinance to hopefully cure some of the confusion that was happening. And so I'll reference where we did that too. There was also some conversation about just removing the Gateway Overlay District section for that sign regulation in specific districts and incorporating that into Rometown Center District. We put together two options because, as I'll walk you through with option 2, when you fold that in with Rometown Center District, one thing that causes some complications is that things like area requirements start to differ, and so you'll see even when it's folded in, it's still separated. And so the question is, when you see it in a draft form, whether or not that's really making it easier to follow or making it more complicated. So I'll take you through both options. First, option 1, as Emily said, option 1 is an option that keeps the Gateway Overlay District section as it had existed, so as a separate section in the sign code district regulations. Remember, we're talking about the sign code, the district regulations in our sign code, and last meeting we had some conversation about some of the confusion with references specifically in those district regulations. So I'm going to try to go in order, but unfortunately to start this conversation, it's probably best that you look at the last page of option 1. Last page of option 1, that's going to be the specific regulations for Gateway Overlay District, okay, as it exists in our zoning ordinance, not in the sign code. The issue that existed there, okay, that is addressed in both options, is that the Gateway Overlay District had referenced sign requirements and took somebody back to the Rometown Center District, okay, rather than just taking them to the sign code. So what this is doing with that different language, instead of having signage requirements included in that first sentence, this is adding a sentence at the end. So it's removing signage. You can see that it's been removed for that first sentence. It's adding a sentence at the end that signage requirements are per the standards set forth in Article 25 of the chapter. Article 25 of the chapter is the sign code. So instead of taking somebody up to Rometown Center, then back to the sign code, okay, it's just saying that sign regulations are per the section of the ordinance that regulates signage. So that definitely will take care of some of the confusion that we've had as we've had questions come in about, well, what are the sign regulations in Gateway Overlay District? It's because that cross-referenced Rometown Center District, which then went to the sign code, but it caused confusion because people were following the Rometown Center District, and certain signs are allowed in Rometown Center District that aren't allowed in Gateway. So on both options, that's why I started with that one, because on both options, you'll see that language has been adjusted in the Gateway Overlay District. Now, for option 1, again, it leaves under the sign code district regulations, it leaves Gateway Overlay District. What it does in option 1, along with leaving the Gateway Overlay District, it does a couple things that Emily had referenced. Number one, probably most significantly, it adds ground signs to an allowable sign type. And I wanna use this as a opportunity to just inform you all that as I went back in my notes and my files to look at some of the updates that had been proposed over time, okay, related to Gateway, I think it's important to note that I saw in my files that back in 2021, there were conversations about adding ground signs. So I wanna make that clear because it's not, that this was being considered before any specific business. It didn't develop into anything. The reason I think it didn't go any further was the conversation was with the past zoning administrator and he left. And so then it just didn't get taken up further. I think it's important to note that the idea of adding ground signs to Gateway Overlay District was a conversation that was being had back in 2021 timeframe. Okay, so that's probably the most significant addition to that, keeping the Gateway Overlay District and adding the ground sign. The other things that were adjusted in or modified in the option is the area restriction. That language was clunky. And so this is an attempt to make it easier to follow. And so that has been, you can see that's been totally rewritten. It hasn't been those requirements and regulations as we've had, or relayed them to anybody prospectively looking to put a sign in Gateway. Those are the same. It's just the way it reads has been adjusted to hopefully be clearer. I believe that's the only adjustments that we make to option one. So option one keeps Gateway, clears up the cross-reference back to Rome Town Center District, adds ground signs, and cleans up the language with the area restrictions or area requirements. Option two does what we talked about last month, which was, it was suggested that we just do away with the Gateway Overlay section under the sign code district requirements and fold that into Rome Town Center District requirements. So that's what this one does. First off, again, as a preface, if you go to the last page, you'll see same language where it references sign requirements. That last sentence now will take you to the sign code, so that'll clear up the confusion there. Then what you'll see on the first page of option two is it's been now reworded to be signs in the Rome Town Center District and Gateway districts. So that section B under the regulations in certain zoning districts now relates to both Rome Town Center District and Gateway Overlay districts. I had to adjust the purpose statement because now we weren't just dealing with Rome Town Center District, and to be honest, some of the purpose statement that existed for Rome Town Center District didn't really fit great with Gateway Overlay District. So I tried to work the wording to be consistent with the purpose statements in those specific zoning districts. You'll see then in permitted sign types, now monument signs had to be folded in because in Rome Town Center District, monument signs weren't allowed. So really now what you're doing is you're opening it up for allowing monument signs in Rome Town Center District and Gateway Overlay District. There is a note there that the ground signs and monument signs need to be placed to create clear vision triangles. That was because we wanted to ensure particularly that monument signs didn't get placed, and frankly ground signs, in Rome Town Center District in any of the vision triangles.
Because Rome Town Center does not state setbacks for signs because of the load speed limit.
So that language is good language to include because of that. Then you'll see under area restrictions, that has just now been portioned out to have area restrictions that relate to the Rome Town Center District and area restrictions that relate to the Gateway Overlay District. So that is a section that, even though they're combined, treat the area restrictions a little bit differently. And so it does pull them apart there. Otherwise, you see that they've been folded in together. Just a general question would be, if the goal is to make it cleaner and easier to follow, whether this does that or not. Or whether this kind of does the same thing that we had the confusion existing with, which is molding it and melding it with Rome Town Center District, by keeping option one and just keeping it separate and cleaning up the cross references, or resolving the ground signs if that's what we want to do. Now somebody in the Gateway Overlay District goes there, the cross reference is correct, and you have your permitted sign types. So, I mean, if the concern was clarity, option one probably keeps it cleaner and clearer now than option two does. Just looking at it from the standpoint of seeing it on paper, because you now are folding them together. And it isn't as easy as saying, if somebody came in and said, hey, what's the sign regulations for Gateway? It's not as easy as saying it's Rome Town Centers, because it's not the way this is written, because the area restrictions are a little bit different. So you'd have to point them to there and have them follow in there. Whereas with option one, you just point them down to the Gateway Overlay section.
I think the main goal was to clarify ordinances the way they're been established, so there's no confusion. And if option one does that, and that's the best way of doing it, that's where we should go.
Sounds like it.
What, do you agree that option one works best for you? Cause you're the one that's gonna be handling all this stuff.
Option one is definitely clearer and more easy to understand for me to enforce and for people asking questions.
Enforcement is the key.
Yeah.
And
Because
for
when-
people to read it and understand.
Yeah.
And just one other point that I think is important to make. So these options were drafted after Emily and I met and discussed this with an eye towards enforcing, answering questions, clarity. These options were drafted. Part of why option two comes here is because we specifically discussed at the last meeting the possibility of removing Gateway under that district-specific regulations and folding it into Rome Town Center. Because we had that discussion, I felt it was appropriate to bring what that would look like so we could at least review it, because I know it was part of our conversation. But option one largely came about because Emily and I did sit down, reviewed our ordinance, where the pain points had been, and the clarity was missing, and updated that. We did put in the ground sign. It's for further discussion here. But I would just say that I wanna make it clear, it's not coming from any one specific business. That had been a point of conversation back in 2020, 2021. And it just didn't go anywhere. The next step should have been, it came to the Plan Commission to discuss, and it just didn't. And so, it's an opportune time to have that conversation because it had previously been discussed, at least at the staff level, regarding updating that sign type in the Gateway Overlay District.
Do you feel it's clear from the folks on the other side that they read it and they'll understand easily? You know, like I put in there, a picture's worth a million words. You know, keep it simple for the people using it from the other side. You know, if we understand it, it's one thing, but if they understand it, that's another as well.
I think it's much easier to understand when they're separate, because if you go under, like if you're gonna have a business on 13 and Gateway, putting you towards Gateway is so much cleaner to read than going under Gateway and Rome Town Center, because then you need to decipher what applies to you. When if it's separate, then you know clean and clear what's applying to you and what's not.
We were adding monument signs in option 2 to Rome Town Center. Was that just not correct to begin with?
That was just combining Gateway and Rome Town Center for option two.
That was the result of combining them.
Yeah,
Right,
But,
because
so there
Gateway-
was not previously monument signs in Rometown Center?
correct.
How come there are monument signs in Rometown Center?
Are they ground signs? Do we have monuments?
Caldwell Banker, is that not a monument sign?
Is that Gateway though?
That is a electronic message board sign. I think that's how, then that would have been before our electronic message board.
And isn't Key Savings Bank a monument sign?
I
That's,
think that's a ground sign too.
or is that a ground sign?
It's confusing because, I mean, if
Yeah.
you talk to anybody, you'll say, well,
What's the difference?
what's the difference?
Anybody know the reason that they didn't approve it initially? I mean, I would think you'd want monument signs down there. They're more attractive than ground signs.
I agree.
May have just been an oversight in that.
So,
Do you wanna
it's a
add
great,
monument signs?
that's a great point,
I
and if
know.
we want to include it, then I would say, if you like option one, we can also include that language, if you want monument signs in there. And then, because of the reasons that Emily said, I think we should also include that bottom sentence that I had in option two, which is that they need to stay out of the vision triangle.
Right.
Okay.
And the way you said that too, Nick, I'm glad you said that, and not to be picky, but the way you said clear vision clearance area triangle, if you read, cause we just talked about this with Link the Lakes project, the DOT calls it a clear vision triangle / clearance area.
Yeah.
If you wanna just
Okay.
turn your words around a little bit there, not being picky or anything,
No,
but.
that's fine.
But yeah, there's confusion between a monument sign and a ground sign, like you said, because monument sign would be like Dollar General. That's based on those rocks, you know, that's, but I would think of Key Savings Bank being a monument sign, you know.
My only example would be, we would have some businesses that are both in Rome Town Center and Gateway.
Yeah,
Don't
but
we have in
Gateway,
our gateway that the stricter applies?
Okay,
but Gateway came along after those businesses were established.
That's correct.
but we still have development sites that potentially would have signage both in Rome Town Center
Yeah.
and in Gateway. So just how we,
Yeah,
Another
it could be
reason to add monument sign to Rome Town Center, so that's the same in both districts.
And I think we do
Exactly.
have, regulations in Gateway, usually we do with any overlay, that says the stricter's gonna apply, usually that's what you do with overlays.
And what would you say, what is Papa Bear's sign, what do we call that sign?
Ground
Ground
sign.
sign.
Ground sign.
That's a ground sign, okay.
but he would have two, I mean, he's got the chair when you come in,
That's a sign?
yeah, it says Papa Bears,
If it advertises the name,
Oh,
it's gonna be a sign.
but then the one on 13 would be a ground sign,
that's what I was saying.
yeah,
But now what is Slice of Heaven, what do we call that?
that's a
Hanging
ground
sign.
That,
A who sign?
Hanging, doesn't it hang?
it does
No,
hang,
it
but I would
doesn't
call it
sway.
a ground sign,
Okay.
cause it's on
What's a
two.
hanging sign then?
It doesn't sway.
I would highly suggest that you guys include some photos or some drawings, so
So-
that people aren't confused on the other side.
So
I mean,
one
that
thing
makes
that,
it easy.
yep, so one thing that came about
We did
from
make a
the,
good suggestion.
from the subcommittee meeting today was this idea that, and it's slightly unrelated, but I think it's related to what you're suggesting. This idea of having, we had talked about doing some kind of pamphlet or information sheet that we include with new homes, and that's not what we're gonna do here, but I think that we could also, maybe create some kind of visual representation of what these signs look like. So when somebody comes in, they can have that, on hand to provide to a person, so they can say, okay, this is what a monument sign is, this is a ground sign.
Cause everybody doesn't know that.
So it's a good suggestion, I think, a similar, discussion was had at that subcommittee meeting about that, and there's a lot of merit for doing that here as well.
And I do like, you know, another point for option one is just that the gateway is, keeping them separate is just that, so people do have an understanding that there are two separate areas and you can point them this way or this way. It's easier for you, like you said, enforcement versus reading it too. This is much easier, it's like, I can sit down and look at this, then come to you with questions, and you can come out and say you did this wrong.
I don't like saying that. but.
But
it
you have
happens.
to, it's part
So
of the job.
these,
It
I'm sorry,
Ask for a raise.
these changes then will come back to us next month?
So,
Is that the future agenda?
so I think it's a good segue. So the question is everybody okay with option one? With the adjustment that we, change number one under RTC district to include monument signs and add the last sentence, and I'm gonna read it so I can make sure I got I think I did. That ground signs and monument signs shall be placed to ensure a clear vision triangle / clearance area. So it would be then option one if that's what you're, what everybody's okay with. And then the next question I would have is, are we are we comfortable enough with it that you want to have the public hearing and consider the possible amendment, or do you wanna see it again with what I just discussed?
Can we see it one last time without all the red, or just, or,
Well, without all the red, or do you want it?
It would have red.
oh, have red, yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfortable moving
I'm
forward.
comfortable with it.
Can always make minor changes when you go to approve it.
You can.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, I would be more than comfortable.
Oh,
There's
okay,
good pictures in it.
Alright.
that's fine.
Okay, option one is a go, and we're okay with having a public hearing next month to consider, and then, of course, you still have the option to, make minor adjustments if you see something, in the interim.
What if we're going with option one, what are we doing about monument signs in RTC? Does that
That's
become a
being
separate?
yeah,
They'll be added.
that's what I'm adding
Same
to
thing.
option one. You'll see it in there.
May I ask,
Would
just,
you have
can
availability
I
then?
just ask
to-
one dumb question, Nick? If you look on the second to the last page, very last number 2, area restrictions.
Oh, yeah.
I read this, the maximum sign area
Yeah,
per
for sure.
business, per business of all permanent of all permanent signs. Oh, per business of all permanent signs for that business.
Yep. So it's just per business there.
Oh, maybe it should say of all permanent signs per business, okay. Never mind, I had to read it a couple of times, got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I think the conversation was good last month. Feedback was good, and it gave us the opportunity to sit, go through our ordinance and I think clear up a lot of the, points of, confusion that have been pain points, I think, through the last maybe even year. So, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So if we're all clear then on item number 17,
Awesome.
that should be just being corrected and going for a public hearing next month. Okay.
Good job, you guys. Thank you.
Then back to item number 16. Discussion of possible referral, future agenda, review zoning district requirements regarding roof pitch. Who wants to start this conversation?
So, I think we briefly brought this up at another meeting. There's been interest in lowering the roof pitch requirement from R4, sorry, not R4. Zoning's in my brain. 4/12 to 3/12 in residential districts to allow more architectural creativity with home construction. So currently, 4/12 roof pitch is required in all residential zoning districts, except for the R2 zoning district that requires 3/12 roof pitch. So there's been a couple residents in town that have been building houses, and there's been, interest in having a roof similar to like the band shell, with a lower roof pitch, with more creative architectural, I guess,
Aesthetic.
Flatter roofs.
flatter roofs, yeah.
Modern mountain.
Yeah, you're right, the
Modern.
modern mountain home design.
Until they get the leaves up there and they don't come down. Okay.
And snow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Original reason for 412 was to keep the snow off the roof.
Well, what pitch are we talking then, Emily? I mean, what is the pitch on the band shell?
I'm not sure of the actual pitch of the band shell, but that design where it's,
You mean they want it like this, or you're
yeah,
just
there
saying?
was, like, there was a home design that, proposed a roof pitch that was inward, like this, and a 3/12, I guess, would be more
Okay.
conducive to the modern mountain, design.
I don't know where they come up
Jamie
with that.
might be Googling this right now.
So would it be helpful, to Paul's point, before you consider changing that to see what that roof pitch would look like on a home?
So
Sure.
I
there's,
know what the band shell looks like, and I've seen them.
so there's multiple houses throughout town, that have a 3/12 roof pitch they were just built before this ordinance was in effect. 3/12 is you can still shingle a 3/12 roof pitch. Once you go below that roof pitch, then you don't have an option to shingle.
Flat roof then.
Flat rubber roof or?
2/12 is still an option, but it would just be,
Wow.
you can't shingle it. I don't know the reason behind that, but, roof experts have been enlightening me with this, with this topic.
You know what it reminds me of is the house on the front of the Brady Bunch?
Yeah,
Little mid-century modern action.
Yeah, like a,
That's the same.
mid-century. Yeah,
Well, the
like
312,
California. You know, like on Monterey. Okay.
312 that's in R2 is because of manufactured homes. All manufactured homes are 312 unless you specify 412, which I had to do on my modular home.
Makes it easier to go under the bridges.
Probably. Let's see. That's where that came from. That's why that one is 312.
There's some really neat ones they're building up on the lakes up north. You know, that are pretty cool. Like, but they don't have the flat. They're
No, they're not flatted,
Yeah,
and
they're
you,
not flat.
it's, you can't, okay, I can't say you can't tell, but I can't tell if a roof is 3/12 versus 4/12 looking at it, but like it allows for interior designs to have higher ceilings and that type of thing more than and I guess more creative when you're looking at like the mountain modern that she was showing you, but.
have all glass facing the lakes. It's really cool, actually.
So what is our purpose in having the roof that we've got, or we're at a 4/12?
4/12 right now.
So what is our purpose in that? Is it safety, is it snow load, is it architectural?
They would all still need to adhere to snow load and all building standards.
I would agree.
I was not here when it was put in place, so I can't speak on why it was put in place. So but
I think if you talk to
We're
a
here now.
structural engineer, they're gonna tell you that if you go to 312, they're gonna have to increase the strength of that roof because it's gonna carry more snow, higher snow load.
But there's different ways of surfacing those roofs now, though, too, for that besides structure, but it's also the type of surface they put on them because of the moisture and things like that, too. Not only are the way they're building them, but the way they roof, you know, the type of materials they use for roofing.
and that's on all roof pitch too. Yeah, not necessarily lower, but all.
Jamie, you said there was a number of people?
Yes.
yeah, we've had several people that have,
Can you quantify that better?
Less than 10, more than, yeah,
Okay.
between 6 and 10.
And what time frame are you talking about? I mean, just recently or?
last year.
Well, since I've been here, if that helps.
manufacturer-
But since June or July to now. So a couple months.
Are these all builders of stick homes?
Yes.
All stick homes, huh?
All stick homes that want a lower roof pitch.
Cause the one up in Iron Mountain, Michigan, close to Iron Mountain, Michigan is Dickinson Homes. They do both stick and manufactured. And they're putting those types of pitches on. I didn't know they were called, what do you call them? Your
Modern Mountain.
modern mountain, okay.
That's what one of the residents said it was called.
It's
And they're building their own home. They're their own architecture,
It must be,
architect. I think they're architects.
it must be a design Modern Mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're putting them on the spread eagle chain up there. That's where a lot of
Oh.
them are going up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's a cool area.
That one's
It,
actually
yeah, that's
labeled the Modern Mountain
really good
design.
ATV that's getting very popular up there.
see no
Yes,
reason why we should
exactly.
have a preference. I mean, that's,
Yeah, and I didn't know why we had 4/12ths, and I don't like saying I don't know why, but I'm not sure why we.
Part of that is
had
true what you
4/12ths.
said, getting them under bridges,
Have you checked,
the mobile homes.
yeah.
that's just mobile home. We allow 312 for mobile homes or for a manufactured home. But everything else is 412.
But do we want all houses to look like cookie cutters, or do we want some individuality?
What other, have we looked at other municipalities? to see
I've
what?
looked at a few, and I'm not sure I even saw a roof pitch. I could go more in depth for sure, but I don't recall seeing a roof pitch requirement.
I
I-
like the idea of letting some new modern looking type, especially if they're in the newer subdivisions. I mean, if people are coming in by 40s and subdivide and put roads in and have some newer looking homes come in.
Well, and there's plenty of lots to buy to build houses.
Yes.
We're at 65 houses this year, like there's tons going up, so.
Yeah, and a lot of younger people with newer money coming in, so if that's the design they want, by all means, why are we gonna discourage that?
Would you like to see then some proposed ordinance language that adjusts that and then talk about it further at the next meeting?
I'm open for that.
Sure.
Sure.
And if we looked at other communities, are there other communities that you'd want us to look at? I mean, oftentimes we
I was
search-
just going to take Jerry's comment and I was just going to do what I did with other ordinances. I was gonna put together just a summary of,
Yeah,
just a general area summary of
I
other
was thinking
municipal
Plover
regulations.
and Point and Marshfield maybe.
You got it.
You could
I was gonna say, do you wanna look up north too?
Try Dickinson County, Florence County.
Cause if we want the up north rural feel here, I don't think it'd be, bad to look up north.
Are you gonna help me with that?
Yeah. I'll help you.
All right.
They've got Steve
I'm
Mariucci's
extending it
name right
beyond
on their
the area,
sign.
Well, we can-
I don't wanna miss anything.
We can pick and choose up north, we don't need to do all up north,
Okay,
right? We could just do random selection?
Yes.
all right.
Cherry pick.
Can you take the subcommittee update and just let them know that it's gonna be on?
You gotta leave?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can, as I'm packing up, I can tell you that, so the subcommittee did, recommend approval for the accessory structures and canopy language. That'll be on your next agenda, not as a public hearing, but just as your first review. And I've asked Emily to send that over to you, right away, so you'll have it well in advance, so you can review that, before your packet. So I'll get the final updates, over to her, and then she can forward it all over to you so you can review it, over the next month.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
that kind of was
Thank you,
the
Nick.
update.
Yeah, you
Oh, I
you
figured.
handled it. Questions?
So we're good with
Emily will handle
canopies,
questions.
are we?
Well, do you wanna talk about the
Pardon me?
subcommittee,
I was talking to.
Oh,
the
Good with
continuation?
cannabis?
Oh, yeah.
You might wanna talk about the
Okay,
continuation of the subcommittee.
Thanks, Nick.
so item number 18 then, does anybody have any questions, as to, I mean, this will all be given to you shortly so that you have it for next month's meeting.
The other piece though that Nick just mentioned is, that was kind of the last item that the subcommittee had, cause they will take one more review of their changes to the comp plan map. But are there additional items outside of the canopy that plan commission would like to refer or have subcommittee work on? Otherwise, what potentially would happen is they would recommend approval to the plan commission for that map, and it would follow through plan commission process, and the subcommittee would disband.
Can you say that one more time?
All of that,
Not all of it, but just the 80-20?
subcommittee would basically be done after their approval of their final map changes, which would be next month. Unless there was something specific that plan commission wanted to refer back to them or wanted assistance on.
And there was discussion about possible creation of a new subcommittee to handle a big project in code such as sign and billboard ordinance.
Yeah, and we don't know that it would be so much a subcommittee exactly as, are there members that have interest in this that wanna do the deep dive with staff? And
Yeah.
maybe leaving that to, if you have that expertise or that want, and then bringing that back to plan commission, rather than,
Do a deep dive into what?
Signs and billboards.
Oh.
So what we're doing now, like we just did the gateway section of it, but that's a very small section of a very large piece of ordinance. So going deeper into that.
I have an interest. There's a big one over on 14th all of a sudden, and it's like on the corner, but where's the building? So, yeah, I have an interest.
a big sign.
Yeah,
For the rental stuff?
storage, but like, where's the building? There's like,
Oh, it's down, you turn and then there's,
yeah, but you don't know that. I mean, it's,
But he has both
It's-
that property on the corner
Yeah.
and then the
Oh.
open storage behind. He owns
Yeah,
that,
they
he
own
owns
all
that
of that.
garage right on the corner.
oh,
so it's on his property.
but you, right, okay,
wouldn't-
now I know that, but
Yeah.
you don't know that if you're, yeah.
The sign makes you turn, or makes you think about it.
Yeah. Or about the 16 gazillion little signs on the corner of Hoozles every summer when it's like, okay, how long have they been there? Yeah.
Every time we do an event, we think, should we make signs? We need a sign.
Should we not? Where will they go?
So then item 18 will come to the plan commission for approval
Next month.
next month.
It won't come for approval, it will come for it won't, cause it just got the
Consideration.
public hearing on next
Yeah,
month.
correct.
Okay, for your first look at it. And 19,
Winter project, right? We're going for the winter, or are you?
So I did have a concern, not a concern, a comment saying, asking if we don't plan on speaking or discussing any agenda item, can it please be taken off until it's gonna be seriously discussed? Because if somebody's gonna sit through an entire meeting for it not to be discussed, they weren't happy that it would be on there and not discussed. So unless we seriously plan on discussing every agenda item, can it be removed?
I think you have a thing called the parking lot, and then when we discuss next agenda items, you can say, here's what's in the parking lot, are we gonna have time, is there interest in talking about it?
I can move this to possible next agenda items, for like the next agenda. Instead of having an actual agenda item,
That's a great
possible
idea.
next.
I like that, as long as we don't lose sight of it.
Yep,
That sounds great.
so under item number 19,
Next agenda item, short-term.
we can move it to the next agenda, being that it's getting kinda late. Anything else anybody wants to see on the next agenda then? Do you have any, thing at the moment, Emily, that you know is gonna be on there? The two that were
Final
canceled for
plat.
tonight?
final plat will be there.
The two short-term rentals that were canceled for tonight?
Yep, and are there more short-term rentals at the moment?
Do you think there's some talking points that Nick could kick off or get us started on, or some preliminary documentation he could have ready for us for review to get us going on for January? That maybe would then get us ready for February to start that?
For short-term rental,
Yes.
I
Oh, I
think he would wanna have a conversation with you first. What are you thinking?
Like what direction?
Well, but get us started on some talking, thinking, I mean,
But I think he wants guidance of what
What?
do you wanna talk about?
well,
Cause he
we've
doesn't know
already
why.
brought all of those things up. He knows. I think he knows. I mean, we've mentioned enough things that,
But I think this comes back to the conditional use or not a conditional use. If you don't want it to be a conditional use, it doesn't come here. It's not in your purview. If you label it conditional use, it has to come to plan commission. So I think that's the first conversation. If you don't want it to have a conditional use, then it just cease in that piece of zoning
Well,
code.
then you can't put any restrictions on the
That is correct.
the rental
You
at
have
all.
no authority
You would-
to.
No maximum occupancy,
You
no
do,
number of vehicles.
that's in code. Maximum occupancy and vehicle are in code.
Okay,
Maximum occupancy, not vehicle, is in code.
Oh, is vehicle not?
Vehicles not on hard surfaces either. Could those things be incorporated into code? Yes. But you don't,
but I think
Or-
Nick has already indicated to us in a number of different meetings already what we can and can't do, and I think he had some good ideas that he already offered up to us, so that's all I'm asking for, is he could give us some talking points where to start at the next meeting. To come into it blindly and just start that whole circle conversation over again would be,
So do you want a conversation of this is what it's gonna continue being with a conditional use versus what it could look like without a conditional use?
yes.
Well, let me ask that question different. What's the end goal? What do you wanna see at the end? If it ideally happened the way that you want it, what does that look like?
A process that still allows integrity to be maintained on the town's part in our short-term rentals, but then also gives this commission more time to do plan commission things.
And handle our zoning in a respectable level, so we,
I think if you go back and look at the amount of time consumed by short-term rentals on a minutes basis in the past year, way outweighs real plan commission work, I'll say. Things that we keep deferring on agendas that we should be talking about.
Yeah, I would vote that we really don't really put much input into these. I mean, it's kinda just listening to it. If you had something, in my opinion, that was defined on paper, this is what you've gotta do, these are the rules, boom, I think you could do the same thing, personally.
So adding elements to code of occupancy, vehicles, property manager. So plan commission would need to require, like, place the conditions.
and even not so much in code, but even stuff that's,
I think it would need to be put into code, cause that way it's enforceable by us.
true, you're right, that's right, Emily.
Because
But
there's
if
not
it's-
much value added in what we do, in my opinion.
I think there's a great deal of value
You
added.
do?
I think we should put this as an agenda item for next.
Well, I mean, it is an agenda item, I mean, it is an agenda, but again, I think there is a huge importance to having it as a conditional use permit. And that's coming from the person that's taking them through the entire process.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a huge value to that.
If you eliminated the conditional use permit, is there then a need to have host compliance?
Yes, cause we
Yes.
still would need to identify, inspect, and collect room tax from those individuals. Yes, absolutely.
There are several communities that don't do it through their planning commission.
There's a mix of those that require conditional uses and don't. I will tell you,
Correct.
because we are a leader in this field in the
Correct.
state. When I am contacted, the majority of them want to do conditional use because it does allow them to put the conditions on it. And I think the most valuable piece that you provide is that you're telling property owners and neighbors, this is absolutely taken seriously. We look at each one of these, we are a partner with you in this process. And I think that is an important value that I understand that it's also, it can be tedious, but we could limit the number that go to each meeting. We could adjust our time frame on that it could be longer than 30 days or 60 days what's in code. So you could limit them, in a meeting and I guess the other piece of that, which again, because this is an iceberg, right? You're seeing the very tip and there's all this other stuff that's being done by staff. There's a lot of these properties that aren't compliant, so they get through you. They need to replace their deck railings, they need to adjust their stair width, they need to put in safety glass. That takes months before they're licensed, right? They don't have to get to you in 30 days because many of them are not prepared to rent directly after your approval.
Does it say 30 days? I thought it's just you're going to be told what meeting you're gonna be on in 30 days.
It's 30 or 60 you have to be put to an agenda. I'd have to look
Put
at
to an
code.
agenda though. So like
Yeah.
we could say, you're gonna be on February. So they're put to the February.
Yeah. Which I think then you could limit them down, that it wouldn't be as tedious.
Yeah, I think that's some of the points, yeah.
I would be interested to see what Nick would say about that as a limiting factor. That's enforceable, or does it put us at risk?
I'd be suing for loss of revenue if I was fully compliant when I made my application.
Yeah, and it took 8
6
months to
months.
get approved, yeah. Well, I mean, I love the idea. I love the idea.
I think there's a lot more, it's very rare that they come here as their last step.
Oh, incredibly rare.
It doesn't happen.
And unless it's brand new construction, and even in those cases, it's very rare that they're totally compliant after you. I mean, out of now we've probably processed through, because we've had people that have sold, about 120 of them, I would say 10% are ready to go the day after plan commission.
What if we had some sort of restriction that said,
have to have every step completed before it comes to planning commission.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
also, you know, maybe limit it to, I mean, to 2 agenda items, you know? But again, I would like to hear what Nick would say about that.
And that almost seems like not a bad request, is that you don't even come here until you are ready to open your doors for, or you're this close to opening your doors to rent. You know, you have everything ticked off this checklist, and then you come to us. It should only be the exceptions that you come to us, or something like that, I don't know. But that's why Nick would be the one to say, and that's why.
I think that's
Yeah.
like best of both worlds. They get their stuff done, then they come to us.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're a time limit where it's once a month, so what if they get it done the day after this meeting and then we put them back a month?
That's,
Right.
It's,
Well, that's their fault.
Yeah.
that's,
They should have got it done the day earlier.
but you're gonna face that with anything that you need approval for, right? I mean, that's also your, but again, I just say,
I'd like to see-
majority are not ready right after this meeting.
I'd like to see everybody's input, but as, you know, but Nick had some ideas, so that's why we have it on our agenda.
The, short-term rentals that were not spoken about tonight, or the one from, Short Sword Court. Do you want us just to bring those documents back next month, or do you wanna reissue them to us, or?
I'll give you everything.
Okay.
In your packet.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay, any other things? I'm hearing nothing, then our next meeting date and time will be January 10th, 2023, it should be. At 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And we'll call the meeting adjourned at 5:48.